A humble cleaning woman was humiliated at a luxury car dealership. The next day, her billionaire employer showed up unannounced. No one could have imagined what would happen next, a story of resilience and hope that will touch your heart. Welcome back. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel and enjoy the story. The autumn sun cast golden rays across the polished showroom floor of Prestige Motors, illuminating the sleek curves of luxury vehicles that Natalie Thompson could never afford on her cleaning salary. At 62, her hands bore the calluses of 30 years spent scrubbing other people's homes, yet her eyes still held a quiet dignity that the young sales associate failed to notice as he approached her, with a practiced smile that vanished the moment he registered her worn uniform. "Can I help you?" His tone suggested the opposite, eyebrows raised as he assessed her faded blue cleaning outfit with a dismissive glance. Natalie straightened her shoulders. "I'm looking for a reliable car for my granddaughter. She's starting college next month, and I've been saving for years to help her." The sales associate, whose nameplate read Blake, exchanged glances with a colleague, a smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Ma'am, these vehicles start at $80,000. Perhaps the used car lot down the street would be more appropriate for your budget." Heat rushed to Natalie's cheeks, the humiliation burning deeper than any cleaning chemical ever had. She clutched her purse tighter, aware of other customers turning to watch. "I've saved $30,000 for her first car." "I thought that's barely enough for a down payment here," Blake interrupted, his voice loud enough for others to hear. "We serve a particular clientele at Prestige Motors. I'm sure you understand." Natalie understood perfectly. She understood the cruel judgment in his eyes, the assumptions made about her worth based solely on her appearance. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her back straight despite the weight of embarrassment pressing down upon her shoulders. The drive back to the Osborne estate, where she had worked as head housekeeper for 15 years, was a blur of unshed tears and righteous indignation. By the time she pulled into the service entrance of the sprawling mansion, Natalie had composed herself, tucking the humiliation behind the professional mask she wore each day. Oliver Osborne noticed immediately. The self-made real estate magnate had an uncanny ability to read people, particularly the woman who had become more family than employee over the years. He found her in the kitchen, methodically arranging fresh flowers in a crystal vase. "Something's bothering you," he stated rather than asked, leaning against the marble countertop. At 58, Oliver carried his success with an understated confidence, his silver-streaked dark hair and tailored casual clothes reflecting the same quiet elegance as his home. Natalie forced a smile. "Just tired, Mr. Osborne. Nothing to concern yourself with." "After 15 years, I think we're past, Mr. Osborne," he reminded her gently. "And after watching you support this family through everything, including Rebecca's illness, I think I can tell when something's wrong." The mention of his late wife softened Natalie's resolve. She had been there through the darkest days of Rebecca's cancer battle, holding the household together when it threatened to collapse under grief. "I tried to buy a car for Melissa today," she finally admitted, "at Prestige Motors." Oliver waited patiently as she recounted the humiliating experience, his expression darkening with each detail. When she finished, his jaw was set in a hard line that she recognized from his toughest business negotiations. "Everyone deserves dignity, Natalie," he said quietly. "Everyone." He pulled out his phone, made a brief call, then excused himself, saying only, "This will be addressed." That evening, as Natalie prepared to leave for her modest apartment, Oliver stopped her at the door. "Take tomorrow morning off," he suggested, though his tone made it more of a direction, "and meet me at Prestige Motors at 11. Wear whatever makes you comfortable." "Sir, that's not necessary." "It is," he insisted. "Not just for you, but for Melissa and for every person who's been judged by their appearance rather than their character." If Blake the sales associate had been eager yesterday, today he was practically salivating as Oliver Osborne stepped out of his custom Bentley. Natalie, arriving moments later in her 15-year-old sedan, watched from the parking lot as Blake rushed to Oliver's side, dollar signs practically visible in his eyes. "Mr. Osborne, what an unexpected pleasure. How can we assist you today?" Perhaps you're interested in the new limited edition. I'd like to speak with the owner, Oliver interrupted calmly, his gaze sweeping the showroom until it landed on Natalie entering through the glass doors. He smiled warmly at her before returning his attention to the now confused sales associate. Mr. Davidson is quite busy, but I'd be happy to tell Richard that Oliver Osborne needs 5 minutes of his time. He'll make himself available. The mention of Oliver's name worked immediate magic. Within moments, a door marked private opened, and Richard Davidson emerged, hand extended and face arranged in a deferential smile. Oliver, what brings you to my humble establishment? Richard was a florid man in his 50s with the forced joviality of someone who had spent a lifetime selling things to people who didn't need them. Let's talk in your office, Richard, Oliver suggested, gesturing for Natalie to join them. The confusion on Richard's face was evident as he assessed Natalie's simple attire, but he led them both inside. Once seated in the opulent office, Oliver came straight to the point. Richard, I'm not just here as a potential customer. I'm here as the owner of this commercial property and as someone considering a significant investment in your expansion plans. Richard's eyes widened. I wasn't aware you owned the... Few people are, I prefer it that way. But more importantly, I'm here because yesterday one of the most important people in my life was treated with inexcusable disrespect in your showroom. Oliver nodded toward Natalie, who sat with quiet dignity as recognition slowly dawned on Richard's face. This is Natalie Thompson. She's been the heart of my household for 15 years. She came here yesterday with $30,000 in savings to buy her granddaughter a car, and your staff humiliated her. Richard's face paled. I had no idea. Please accept my deepest apologies, Ms. Thompson. This is not how we conduct business. Isn't it? Oliver challenged. Because I suspect it's exactly how you conduct business with anyone who doesn't look the part of your particular clientele, as your employee put it. The dealership owner began stammering apologies, but Oliver raised a hand to stop him. Here's what's going to happen, Richard. Either you transform how this dealership treats every potential customer, regardless of their appearance or perceived wealth, or you can start looking for new premises when your lease expires in 3 months. The ultimatum hung in the air between them, Richard's face cycling through shock, indignation, and finally, resignation. Of course, Oliver, I assure you, changes will be implemented immediately. Good. And to demonstrate my seriousness, I'll be having mystery shoppers of various backgrounds visit in the coming weeks. Their reports will determine whether your changes are superficial or genuine. As they left the office, Oliver placed a gentle hand on Natalie's shoulder. Now, let's find a suitable car for Melissa. I believe you mentioned $30,000. That should get her something reliable and safe. If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type 0. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing, the following weeks revealed that the change at Prestige Motors was largely performative. Sales staff put on friendly faces for all customers, while cameras were watching. But Oliver's mystery shoppers reported whispered mockery and dismissive service once they believed no one important was looking. It's as I suspected, Oliver told Natalie over coffee in his sun-drenched kitchen one morning in early May. Spring had transformed the estate gardens, mirroring the hope that had blossomed in Natalie after their confrontation at the dealership. They're just going through the motions. Natalie sighed, her hands wrapped around her mug. People don't change their attitudes overnight, I suppose. No, but businesses can change their practices, or they can face consequences, Oliver replied, a contemplative look crossing his face. Your granddaughter, Melissa, she's studying engineering, correct? Mechanical engineering, Natalie confirmed with evident pride. Top of her class. She's always been fascinated by how things work, ever since she was little. Has she considered applying for summer internships? Natalie nodded. She's applied to several. The competition is fierce, especially for women in that field. Oliver's eyes lit up with the spark that Natalie had come to recognize as the birth of an idea. What would she think about interning at a car dealership, specifically in their service department? The following day, Melissa Thompson submitted her application to Prestige Motors' internship program. Her qualifications were impeccable. Straight A's in mechanical engineering, relevant coursework in automotive systems, and glowing recommendations from her professors. What the application didn't mention was her relationship to Natalie, a detail Oliver suggested they leave for discovery. 2 weeks later, Melissa was called for an interview. She returned to her grandmother's apartment afterward, her expression a mixture of disappointment and frustration. "They offered me a position," she told Natalie, dropping onto the worn sofa, "in the administrative office, filing paperwork and answering phones. But your application was for the service department," Natalie questioned, sitting beside her granddaughter. "Apparently, they felt my skills would be better utilized in an administrative capacity," Melissa mimicked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Meanwhile, they've placed 2 guys with fewer qualifications directly in the service bay. One of them literally said he tinkers with cars on weekends as his experience." Natalie felt a familiar burn of indignation. "Did you accept the position?" Melissa sighed, pushing her curly hair back from her face. "I did. Any experience is better than none, I guess. And it's close to home." When Natalie related this development to Oliver, his reaction was swift and decisive. That afternoon, he made another unannounced visit to Prestige Motors, this time finding Richard Davidson on the showroom floor with a wealthy client. "Oliver!" Richard exclaimed, clearly torn between attending to his current prospect and appeasing the man who controlled his commercial lease. "What a pleasant surprise. I'm just wrapping up with Dr. Mercer here." "Take your time," Oliver replied smoothly. "I'll wait in your office." 20 minutes later, a visibly nervous Richard joined him. "What can I do for you today, Oliver? Our mystery shopper reports have been much improved, I believe." "Superficially, yes," Oliver acknowledged. "But I've discovered your commitment to change doesn't extend to your hiring practices." Richard's brow furrowed in confusion. "Melissa Thompson," Oliver stated, "brilliant engineering student, applied for a position in your service department, relegated to answering phones while less qualified male applicants get hands-on experience." Recognition and alarm flashed across Richard's face. "Thompson? I didn't make the connection, clearly, but that's not the point. The point is that your discrimination runs deeper than I initially thought." Oliver stood, adjusting his suit jacket with deliberate calm. "I've been considering expanding my business interests, Richard. There's a vacant lot across the street. That would be perfect for a competing dealership, one staffed by people who understand that respect transcends social status and gender." "You wouldn't," Richard breathed, though his tone suggested he knew perfectly well that Oliver would. "I've already had preliminary architectural drawings prepared," Oliver replied, removing a folded document from his inner pocket and placing it on the desk. "Construction could begin next month." Richard stared at the blueprints, his face ashen. "What do you want?" "Genuine change, starting with moving Melissa Thompson to the service department, where her talents belong. Following, with comprehensive sensitivity training for your entire staff, and culminating with a new company culture that values every customer and employee, regardless of appearance, gender, or background." Backed into a corner, Richard agreed to Oliver's terms. The following week, all Prestige Motors employees were required to attend sensitivity training sessions. To Oliver's suggestion, Natalie was invited to speak about her experiences. Standing before the assembled staff in the dealership's conference room, Natalie felt her pulse racing. Public speaking had never been her forte, but Oliver's encouraging nod from the back of the room steadied her. "My name is Natalie Thompson," she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I've spent 30 years cleaning wealthy people's homes and offices. I've raised a daughter as a single mother, put her through college working 2 jobs, and saved for 15 years to buy my granddaughter her first car. When I came here that day, I wasn't looking for special treatment, just basic respect." As she continued her story, many employees listened with genuine interest and empathy. A few looked ashamed. Blake, the sales associate who had humiliated her, sat with arms crossed and eyes periodically rolling. When she finished, the training facilitator opened the floor for questions. Blake's hand shot up immediately. "No offense, but isn't this special treatment? You're only here because you work for a rich guy who threw his weight around." Before Natalie could respond, Oliver stepped forward. Actually, Natalie is here because her story illustrates the cost of discrimination. Not just the moral cost, but the business cost. What you didn't know when you dismissed her is that Natalie is the executor of my charitable foundation, which awards educational scholarships worth millions each year. Blake's expression froze, his posture suddenly rigid. In fact, Oliver continued, I believe your son Tyler has applied for one of those scholarships. His essay was quite compelling, all about overcoming prejudice and treating people with dignity regardless of their background. The color drained from Blake's face as the implications of Oliver's words sank in. After the session, he approached Natalie with a stammered apology that sounded more concerned with his son's scholarship than with genuine remorse. That evening, in the quietness of the garden where she often tended to Rebecca's beloved roses, Natalie found herself conflicted. Oliver joined her, respecting her silence as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I'm grateful for what you're doing, she finally said, but sometimes I worry that forcing change through power and threats isn't really change at all. Oliver considered her words carefully. You may be right, but sometimes systemic change needs to start with actions, even if the hearts aren't ready to follow. My hope is that by creating a structure that demands respect, eventually the culture will align. And if it doesn't, then at the very least, people like your granddaughter won't have doors closed to them because of assumptions and biases. They'll have a fighting chance to prove their worth through their work. Natalie nodded, finding wisdom in his perspective. Speaking of Melissa, she started in the service department today. Oliver smiled. And how did it go? She called. It educational. Apparently the other interns were less than welcoming until she diagnosed an electrical issue that had stumped them for hours. Wait until you discover what happens when Melissa's true mechanical talents are revealed to the entire dealership. How will the other interns react when they realize they've underestimated her abilities? As spring gave way to early summer, subtle changes began to take root at Prestige Motors. Richard Davidson, initially motivated by fear of financial ruin, found himself genuinely intrigued by the business implications of a more inclusive approach. Sales figures, which he reviewed obsessively, showed an unexpected upward trend as word spread about the dealership's more welcoming atmosphere. Our customer demographic is broadening, he told his management team during their monthly meeting. We're seeing more first-time luxury buyers, more women making independent purchasing decisions, and interestingly, higher customer satisfaction scores across all segments. Not everyone embraced the transformation. Blake, finding himself increasingly at odds with the new direction, eventually requested a transfer to another branch of the dealership group rather than adapt his deeply ingrained attitudes. Richard, recognizing that some people would never change, approved the transfer without regret. In the service department, Melissa was flourishing. Her theoretical knowledge, combined with a natural aptitude for problem-solving, made her an invaluable addition to the team. The initial resistance from her male counterparts had largely dissolved in the face of her undeniable competence. By mid-June, she had begun work on a project that excited her beyond measure, developing a new diagnostic system that could significantly reduce service times for common issues. The service manager, initially skeptical, had given her access to the resources she needed after she demonstrated a prototype using her own laptop and basic scanning tools. Your granddaughter is something special, Oliver told Natalie one evening as they shared dinner on the terrace, a habit they had fallen into since Rebecca's passing that neither acknowledged for its domestic intimacy. She always has been. Natalie replied with the quiet pride of a woman who had sacrificed much to nurture such potential. Her mother, my daughter, was the same way. Brilliant, determined. Life just got in the way for her. Oliver nodded, understanding the unspoken story. Natalie's daughter had shown early promise, but an unplanned pregnancy at 19 had derailed her educational plans. Though she had eventually completed her degree while working full-time, her career had never reached the heights her potential had promised. Melissa won't face the same limitations, he said with certainty. She has you, and now she has opportunity. As the summer progressed, Natalie found herself facing an unexpected challenge. The arthritis that had troubled her for years worsened, making the physical demands of her job increasingly difficult. She hid the pain well, but Oliver's perceptive gaze missed little. He found her one morning, pausing at the bottom of the grand staircase, one hand pressed against her lower back, her face tight with discomfort. "You should have told me it was getting worse," he said softly, startling her. "It's nothing," she deflected, straightening immediately. "Just a twinge." "Natalie," his tone brooked no argument. "You've cared for this household, for me and my family, for 15 years. Allow me to return that care." The next day, Oliver arranged for a comprehensive medical evaluation with the same specialists who had treated Rebecca. The diagnosis confirmed what Natalie had suspected, but had been avoiding. Her condition would require reduced hours and eventually a less physically demanding role. The fear that followed was visceral, fear of losing not just income, but purpose, community, the life she had built within the walls of the Osborne estate. That evening she approached Oliver in his study, her resignation letter clutched in trembling hands. "What's this?" he asked, looking up from his desk. "My formal notice," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Given my condition, I can't fulfill my duties as before. It seems best to step aside while I can still train a replacement properly." Oliver didn't take the letter. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying her with the same intensity he brought to his business dealings. "Do you want to leave, Natalie?" The question caught her off guard. "Of course not, but I can't continue as—" "That wasn't my question. I asked if you want to leave." Tears she hadn't allowed herself to shed welled in her eyes. "No. This has been my home as much as my workplace, but I won't accept charity." "Good, because I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a transition to a new role. Household manager. Less physical labor, more administrative oversight, same salary, better healthcare benefits, and a schedule that accommodates your medical needs." The relief that washed over Natalie was so profound she had to sit down. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Oliver suggested with a gentle smile. "And then help me plan that customer appreciation event Richard has been talking about. I have some ideas I'd like your input on." "Natalie, have you ever contemplated the impact of treating someone with dignity, even when society suggests they don't deserve it? Has someone ever judged you by your appearance rather than your character? Share your experience in the comments below." The customer appreciation event was scheduled for early September, as summer's heat began to relent and hints of autumn colored the landscape. Prestige Motors had undergone a remarkable transformation, both physically and culturally, in the intervening months. Gone were the cold, intimidating showrooms designed to make customers feel simultaneously awed and inadequate. In their place were warm, welcoming spaces with comfortable seating areas, interactive displays that demystified vehicle features, and a diverse staff trained to engage with customers as individuals rather than walking wallets. Richard Davidson, whose initial compliance had been reluctant at best, had become a surprising advocate for the new approach. The increased sales figures certainly helped his enthusiasm, but there was something more, a genuine satisfaction in creating a business that served people well rather than exploiting them. "The event is coming together nicely," he told Oliver during a planning meeting in late August. "We've invited our entire customer base, of course, plus community leaders and press. The catering is confirmed, and the new model reveals are scheduled throughout the evening." "Excellent," Oliver nodded. "And the announcement?" Richard smiled. "Prepared exactly as you requested. It will be the highlight of the evening." On the day of the event, Natalie found herself in unfamiliar territory. Not as staff, but as an honored guest. Oliver had insisted she take the day off, arranging for a car to bring her to the dealership that evening. When she arrived, wearing a simple but elegant dress that Oliver's personal shopper had helped her select, she was immediately greeted by Richard himself. "Ms. Thompson, welcome," he said, extending his hand with genuine warmth. "Please, allow me to escort you to your seat. We've reserved a special place for you near the podium." Confused but intrigued, Natalie followed him through the crowded showroom, noting the diverse mix of attendees. People of all backgrounds mingled among the vehicles, enjoying refreshments and animated conversation. she spotted Melissa across the room, engaged in what appeared to be an intense technical discussion with several service department colleagues, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. As Natalie took her seat in the front row, Oliver appeared beside her, handsome in a tailored suit. "Everything all right?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for any sign of discomfort. "Just confused," she admitted. "Why am I sitting up front?" And Richard mentioned something about the podium. "You'll see," he promised with a mysterious smile. "Just know that you deserve every bit of recognition coming your way." Before she could question him further, the lights dimmed slightly, and Richard stepped onto the small stage that had been erected at one end of the showroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Prestige Motors' Customer Appreciation Event," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the sophisticated sound system. "Tonight is about more than showcasing our vehicles. It's about celebrating the community we serve and the values that now drive our business." He continued with practiced charm, highlighting the dealership's recent achievements and introducing several new vehicle models. As the presentations progressed, Natalie found herself relaxing, enjoying the evening, despite her initial uncertainty. Finally, Richard's voice took on a more serious tone. "Before we conclude tonight's formal program, I'd like to invite Oliver Osborne to the stage for a special announcement." Oliver squeezed Natalie's hand briefly before rising and taking his place at the podium. His commanding presence immediately captured the room's attention. "Thank you, Richard. Over the past 6 months, many of you have noticed significant changes. At Prestige Motors, changes in atmosphere, in service, in the very culture of the business. These changes didn't happen by accident. They happened because of one person's dignity in the face of disrespect, and another person's willingness to recognize a systemic problem." Oliver gestured toward Natalie. "Natalie Thompson, would you please join me on stage?" Heart-pounding, Natalie made her way up the short steps, conscious of all eyes upon her. Oliver welcomed her with a supportive arm around her shoulders. "Many of you don't know Natalie, but she has been the heart of my household for 15 years. 6 months ago, she came to this very dealership with $30,000 in savings, money she had set aside over many years to buy her granddaughter's first car. She was turned away, told that her appearance, her cleaning uniform, meant she didn't belong here." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Natalie noticed several staff members looking distinctly uncomfortable. "That incident catalyzed the transformation you see today," Oliver continued. "But more importantly, it highlighted for me the extraordinary character of this woman, who has devoted her life to caring for others while maintaining her own dignity and integrity." He turned to face her directly. "Natalie, your granddaughter, Melissa, has proven herself to be a remarkable young woman with an extraordinary future ahead of her. Her innovative diagnostic system has already caught the attention of automotive industry publications, and her potential seems limitless." Pride swelled in Natalie's chest as she glanced toward Melissa, who was watching with tears in her eyes. "Tonight," Oliver announced, turning back to the audience, "I am honored to establish the Natalie Thompson Technical Excellence Scholarship, a program that will provide full educational funding for underprivileged students pursuing careers in automotive technology and engineering." Gasps and applause erupted as he continued. "This scholarship, funded through my foundation and supported by Prestige Motors, will ensure that talent and determination, not social status or appearance, determine who gets opportunities in this industry." Tears blurred Natalie's vision as Oliver handed her a ceremonial plaque. The crowd rose in a standing ovation, their applause washing over her like a cleansing wave. In that moment, she felt truly seen, not as a cleaning woman, not as an employee, but as a person of value and dignity. "I can hardly wait to see how this recognition transforms Natalie's life. What will the scholarship mean for future students? Will the dealership continue its positive transformation?" As the formal program concluded and guests began to circulate, again Natalie found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Community leaders, dealership staff, even customers approached to congratulate her and express admiration for the scholarship program. Melissa made her way through the crowd, embracing her grandmother with fierce pride. "You never told me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. About what happened that day, about Mr. Osborne's intervention, any of it. It wasn't my story to tell, Natalie replied simply. You needed to make your own way, to be judged on. Your own merits. Well, they're certainly judging me now, Melissa laughed, wiping away a tear. The service manager offered me a paid position to continue developing my diagnostic system after my internship ends. And 3 other dealerships have reached out since the trade publication article came out. As the evening progressed, Natalie observed Oliver moving through the crowd with effortless grace, equally comfortable speaking with wealthy clients and service technicians. He caught her eye across the room and raised his glass in a silent toast, his expression warm with affection and respect. Later, as the event began to wind down, Richard Davidson approached Natalie with a small gift box. A token of my personal appreciation, he explained, handing it to her, and a reminder of how much I've learned these past months. Inside the box was a keychain bearing the Prestige Motors logo attached to a set of car keys. Natalie looked up in confusion. For your granddaughter, Richard clarified. The employee discount plus some additional considerations. We wanted to ensure Melissa has reliable transportation as she begins her career. The vehicle is parked outside whenever she's ready to drive it home. Emotion threatened to overwhelm Natalie again. That's incredibly generous. Richard shook his head. It's good business. Your granddaughter is a remarkable talent and we want her associated with our brand. But more than that, it's the right thing to do. He hesitated, then added with surprising sincerity, Thank you for helping me remember that profit and principle don't have to be mutually exclusive. By the time Natalie and Oliver left the dealership, night had fallen completely. They stood in the parking lot, watching as Melissa excitedly explored her new car. A practical but stylish compact that represented not just transportation, but transformation. She'll be all right, Oliver observed, his breath visible in the cooling autumn air. Better than all right, Natalie agreed. She'll be extraordinary. The drive back to the Osborne estate was comfortable in its silence. When they arrived, Oliver surprised her by asking if she'd join him for a nightcap on the terrace. Despite the late hour and her usual insistence on maintaining professional boundaries, Natalie found herself accepting. They sat in the soft glow of landscape lighting, the gardens around them transitioning from summer's lushness to autumn's golden splendor. I never properly thanked you, Natalie said after a while, her fingers wrapped around a crystal tumbler of expensive brandy that Oliver had insisted would help ward off the evening chill. For what specifically? He asked, genuinely curious. For seeing me, she replied simply. Not just my work or my role in your household, but me, my dignity, my worth. It's rare in this world, especially for someone like me. Oliver considered, her words thoughtfully. Rebecca used to say that the measure of a society isn't how it treats its most privileged members, but how it treats those with the least power. I think she was right. The mention of his late wife brought a comfortable melancholy to the moment. Natalie had been there through those final difficult months, had held Rebecca's hand when Oliver couldn't bear to witness her suffering, had promised to look after him when she was gone. She would be proud, Natalie said softly, of the scholarship, of how you've used your influence. She would be proud of you, Oliver corrected, of how you've maintained your integrity despite every reason not to, of how you've raised Melissa to be the woman she is. They lapsed into silence again, watching the stars emerge in the clear autumn sky. The boundaries between employer and employee, between different social worlds, seemed less defined than they had 6 months earlier, not erased, perhaps, but softened by mutual respect and shared purpose. In the weeks that followed, Natalie settled into her new role as household manager with surprising ease. The reduced physical demands allowed her to focus on what she had always excelled at, creating a welcoming, efficient home environment that anticipated needs before they arose. Melissa began her paid position at Prestige Motors, coming home each evening full of stories about the challenges and triumphs of developing her diagnostic system. The scholarship program attracted hundreds of applicants in its first round, including, ironically, Blake's son Tyler, who was among those selected for the inaugural class. As for the dealership itself, The transformation proved sustainable even without Oliver's direct oversight. Richard Davidson discovered that his genuine connection with customers from all walks of life improved not just his business, but his personal fulfillment. The cultural shift became self-reinforcing as employees found greater satisfaction in their work, and customers responded with loyalty and referrals. On a crisp October morning, nearly 7 months after that first humiliating encounter at Prestige Motors, Natalie sat with Oliver on the estate's east portico, watching the sunrise paint the sky in vivid hues. Their morning coffee had become a ritual neither acknowledged but both treasured, a quiet moment of connection before the day's demands began. "I received the quarterly reports from Richard yesterday," Oliver mentioned, his gaze still on the horizon. "Prestige's sales are up 28% over this time last year." Natalie smiled. "And customer satisfaction scores?" "At an all-time high. Turns out treating people with dignity is good for the bottom line." He chuckled softly. "Who would have thought?" "Everyone deserves dignity," Natalie echoed his words from that first evening, when he had promised to address the injustice she'd experienced. "Everyone," he agreed, his eyes meeting hers with warm regard. "Including you." "Natalie, always you." In that moment, as autumn light gilded the landscape in gold, Natalie felt the full circle of their journey. From humiliation to recognition, from invisibility to being truly seen. The disparities in their financial circumstances remained, but something far more important had been established: equality in their humanity, mutual respect that transcended social status. Later that day, as Melissa drove away in her new car, reliable, practical, perfect for a young woman beginning her career, Natalie and Oliver stood side by side in the driveway, watching until she turned the corner and disappeared from view. "She'll change things," Oliver predicted, "in ways we can't even imagine yet." "Yes," Natalie agreed, her heart full of pride and possibility. "And she'll remember what it took to get here. She'll remember the importance of seeing people, really seeing them, regardless of their uniform or title or bank account." Oliver's hand found hers, a gesture of solidarity and shared vision. That's how real change happens, one person at a time, one moment of recognition at a time. As they turned to walk back into the house, his house yet somehow now theirs in spirit, Natalie knew that regardless of where life took them next, they had created something precious and enduring. A small corner of the world where dignity wasn't determined by wealth, where respect wasn't reserved for the privileged, where every person was valued for their inherent worth, rather than their external trappings. And in the end, that was the greatest transformation of all. Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments, so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.